Welcome to Glow for Hope, sparking conversation on mental health, where we break the silence, build community, and ignite hope. We're here to talk about what really matters: mental health, wellness, and the conversations that help us all feel seen and supported. Every episode will bring real stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you navigate mental wellness and suicide prevention. Because together, we can change the conversation. Let's get started. Welcome back to Glow for Hope podcast. I'm Kelly Pelker, and today we're having an important conversation, especially for parents, coaches, educators, and athletes who may be listening. Sports are often talked about as a place where discipline, toughness, and resilience are built. And while that can be true, what we don't talk about enough is what happens when the pressure, the injuries, the expectations, and the silence start to weigh heavier than the game itself. Today, I'm joined by Matt Benson, a former high school and collegiate football player and a former high school coach who has lived both sides of that experience. Matt has been very open about his own mental health struggles, losing someone close to him to suicide, and navigating addiction as a way to cope during some of the hardest years of his life. This conversation isn't about stats or wins. It's about what athletes carry when the lights go off, the season ends, or the identity they've built starts to crack. Matt, thank you for being here and being willing to share your story.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So, to start us off, can you share a little bit about who you were as an athlete in high school and college?
As an athlete, I played football my entire life, played other sports like basketball, baseball, you name it. I probably tried it at some point growing up. But really football was what I was good at. Football was what I excelled in. As an athlete and a teammate, most people typically thought I was a very outspoken, extroverted individual. My junior and senior year of high school, I was a nominated captain. My junior year, we won the first regional championship in school history. And then in college, I was nominated captain my junior year by my peers. So I always kind of took a leadership role as an individual of a much bigger team, but kind of identified as one of the guys. I was one of the party animals. I was one of the guys that always liked to have fun, wasn't afraid to talk to anybody, and typically came across as a pretty lively teammate to most. So
That's good. So, did you go away to college or were you still local?
I did. So I am born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. Went to high school at Eastern High School here in Louisville, Kentucky. But football drug me to the Appalachian Mountains in a city known as Pikeville, or if you're from Pikeville, you know it's called Pikeville, which
Kind of
is
like
as
Louisville.
yeah, as far east Kentucky as you can go, about 15 to 20 minutes away from West Virginia. So I was the only person from my college at the time that had ever gone to the University of Pikeville. And it wasn't really a decision that I made for myself. The offensive line coach came on a recruiting visit and he was from Louisville. And I told him I didn't want to play football in college. And he kind of looked at me and said, "Hey, buddy, you're going to give me at least 1 year of your time." He's like, "I think you'll love it. I think you'll enjoy it." And forever grateful for Coach Heineman for giving me that opportunity to play college football.
That's great. So, was that kind of like your first experience away from home?
Yes. Yes, it was. It was not too far away from home, but it was far enough that I didn't have immediate access to home. I was about 3.5 hours away, and a very long and demanding, boring drive at that.
Uh, I could relate to that. Like my son went away for the first time when he went to college to play football as well, and it was a nice 5.5 hour flat drive.
Yeah, mine was a
Way out
three
the
and a half
mountains.
hour through mountains.
Uh, uh, so you've shared that mental health struggles were already present during your college years. What did that look like for you at the time, especially in a football environment?
Well, the hardest thing for me was that on the outside, I always tried to appear that I was fine, that I was lively. I was full of personality. I liked to have fun. I was very consistent in showing up to team meetings, practice, getting my homework assignments done. I never really didn't excel in school. I was always above average student compared to at least compared to my other teammates. I was one of the guys that helped the team GPA, and really externally, it seemed like I was doing the right things 90% of the time. But I struggled a lot with feeling that I had to be more than what I was. And internally, I was really struggling with a lot and using a lot of things negatively that, as a college student, people just think that you like to drink, you like to have fun, you like to go out. But I was doing these things to hide from what I was really feeling on the inside.
So, how much of that do you think stemmed from like the pressure that the coach put on you in the beginning, just even recruiting you?
Um, I think it had a little bit to do with that. But I think the hardest thing for me, and I still struggle with it to this day, is self-worth and self-depreciation. I'm very hard on myself. I hold myself to a very high standard, and when you hold yourself to that high standard, a lot of times you only feel like you're letting yourself down. Um,
It's very true. Very true. So, was there a magical moment then that you kind of, the light bulb went off and it's like, I'm not okay, but didn't feel like you could say that out loud? That the light
uh,
went off?
No, not really. As far as like not being okay, like I knew I was not okay every single day. But I still did the things that I needed to do. Mainly just the fear of letting other people down is what honestly at times made me even more depressed because I always felt like I was going to let somebody down, that I was not enough for everybody else. So I always tried so hard to be enough for everybody else and never truly focused on just being enough for myself,
Hmm.
um, and putting myself at the center.
Right, right. Do you think that any part of like the first time being away from home and all that had a lot to do with it too? Because I feel like, and I haven't really had this conversation with my son yet, but I feel like that played a big part in him and how he just kind of, I mean, he went off and did like all these things that he didn't do. He became the life of the party and wanted to do this and that, and then everything kind of started to slide. And
Yeah,
he hadn't been away from home before. He was a, I'm not gonna say a big deal on his high school team, but I mean his team did well. He was a leader on the field, and it just it so many pressures and that just a new experience of being in college and away from home and this pressure
yes,
from every direction.
absolutely. And one of the hardest things for me, and the day that I left for college, the day that I left for summer camp, my freshman year of college, my parents got divorced. And that came with a lot of, my parents stayed together my entire life. And then the day they dropped me off when I was away, they went their separate ways. And I lived with a lot of guilt for that and feeling like, growing up, I wasn't always, the most obedient son, we'll put it that way. But having a lot to feel that I was responsible for the reason that my parents got divorced weighed very heavy on me my freshman year. And then, of course, moving away from everybody you know and love to a place where I walked in and I didn't know a single person.
Mm-hmm.
I lived with six guys my freshman year, and I did not know them until the day I showed up for football. I had never talked to any of them until the day I showed up for football.
And as an
So,
introvert, that's a lot.
yes. And with what was going on at home, it made it even harder because it's like I didn't feel like I could talk to those guys about what I was going through, that they didn't care necessarily that my parents just got divorced or that I had lost, a guy that was very close to me to suicide. It was like you kind of move to a place and you think that nobody cares about you anymore, that you're just kind of out on an island.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So when did you lose your friend?
Uh, February 21st, 2013.
And that was before you went to school.
Yeah, it was my
High school.
sophomore year of high school.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's rough. It's rough at any time, but
Yes.
at that age, it's so
Yeah.
hard to just wrap your head around. And
Yeah.
athletes are often praised for pushing through pain. How do you think that mindset affects how young athletes handle emotional or mental pain?
I really think that the biggest issue with this is that young athletes are always under the impression, especially when it comes to football, that when the game gets tough, when life gets tough, that you have to get tougher. Um, and while, a lot of people can push through adversity, and that's really where you write your success story is pushing through that adversity. It's 100% okay to not be okay at times. I think that too often young athletes look to these guys that are in the NFL, NBA, MLB, and they only see the good side of these people. They only see, what they're doing on national television or what they're posting on their social media. And underneath it all, they don't really see what these athletes go through on a day to day basis. And they idolize these guys and they think they have to be like these guys, not knowing that, these guys in the NFL, NBA, any professional sports organization, that there's a lot of guys out there that deal and struggle with mental health themselves.
Yeah,
Um,
that just happened in the last couple of days. That Penguins player
yeah,
that Sean something that died by suicide, and
yeah. And it's just tough because, in the days of social media and the media, it's like people only want to put out there the good in their lives. And there's a lot that can be said about getting off of that stuff and really coming to spend time with yourself. Because you're never going to be like that guy you look up to on social media. Because you don't know about his life. You only know about what he wants to let you in on. And it makes it very hard. And oftentimes, I feel like young athletes struggle with that because they get these false idolizations of these guys that live perfect lives. And yeah, while they're making millions of dollars playing sports, doing whatever, money cannot buy happiness. So you see guys like the Penguins player, and it's like, oh man, like these guys really do struggle. And I think opening your eyes and seeing, more of these guys that do struggle can help young athletes.
Mhm. I agree. So injuries happen, like your knee. You had a knee injury. What your senior year? How does that impact mental health and identity when the game is just kind of suddenly taken away? Does
So
it feel
yeah,
like it is in the movies?
yeah. So my junior year, I actually tore my labrum in my shoulder and played my junior year of college. I tore my labrum in my shoulder and played the rest of the season with a shoulder that would not stay in place. I'd actually
Mm-hmm.
taught the guy that played alongside of me how to pop my shoulder back in place so I wouldn't have to come out of games. In my junior year of college, it was a lot of fun. We ended up winning the first conference championship in school history, and after the season was over, I get my shoulder fixed. I spend 6 to 8 months in recovery to get that going. And summer camp going into my senior year, my first full contact practice, my first live rep, 11 on 11, real football.
Mm-hmm.
I get rolled up on and tear everything in my knee. You name it, ACL, MCL, PCL, LCL, meniscus. Just a freak accident. Nobody meant to do it, but blew out my knee and was told, football's over for you, buddy. And it took away everything for me, because football was came to be the one thing that I felt confident I was good at, and it was
Mm-hmm.
taken away from me in the blink of an eye. Um,
Yeah,
it
we
was
can't take
just
it for granted. That's for sure.
yeah. It was the one thing that football was always the one thing that I truly thought held my life together. That it was the reason I went to college, that it was the reason I was going to graduate college. it was a sport I spent over 15 years of my life playing. And in a matter of 15 seconds, I was told, hey, you're not playing football. Freak accident. And it wasn't in that instance I was told I was never going to play again. It was the next day. But just, in a 24-hour span, I was told that I shouldn't play football ever again. And it really, it takes away everything from you when that's what held your life together for so many years.
Yeah, for sure. Now, um, so you went on? Did you go on a full ride scholarship?
Um, it was not necessarily a full ride. I went to a small little NAIA school, but with how it worked out, I went to college for a very low price compared to what a lot of people have to pay
Hmm.
for college these days. College is ridiculously expensive.
So then, when you got injured, did that take away that small amount, and that just kind of added another layer of things for you?
Luckily for me, when I was told I wasn't going to be able to play anymore, I sat down with my head coach and he still gave me my scholarship for my senior year,
Wow.
to help out and to be a mentor to some of the younger guys and to do things off the field to help younger guys be ready to be on the field and help them keep them in their books. And I
Mhm.
was very blessed with the coaching staff that I had that still honored my scholarship, but
Very
kind of
much so,
asked me
because
to be
that's
a
unusual.
yeah, kind of asked me to be a different role. I came more of a peer mentor than I did a football player. So
Hmm. Hmm. So, looking back, what do you wish a coach, teammate, or trusted adult had asked you but didn't?
I wish there was more of, somebody just kind of calling you out for your BS in a sense, somebody to just truly tell me how to express how I feel. That one-on-one conversations were a safe place, and that the struggles you were dealing with, you weren't alone. I attended counseling in college, as one of my coaches recommended I go to counseling and actually put me in counseling and became a requirement for me to try to help with my mental health struggles after I opened up to him. But really, talking to that counselor never translated to my coaches or my teammates or um, anybody else really because of that, the counselor confidentiality that they have to have that, no matter what you say to them, they can't run and tell your coach.
Mm.
It stays one on one. And I kind of just wish, that a coach would have looked at me one day and said, "Hey, buddy, I know you're not okay. Let's sit down and talk about it." With football, it seems like everything's just go go go, and there was never time to just sit down and truly express how I felt about the situations I was in.
Hmm. And then I mean, plus there's kind of a stigma around, did you were even getting counseling? And I mean, kudos to the coach that put you on that path. But did you feel like everybody knew that you were going, and you were kind of like the odd man out, or?
Absolutely. Definitely. And counseling was one of those things that I never really took seriously because I was so hard-headed that before I even met with the counselor the first time, I had already convinced myself that it wasn't going to work. Which is not by any means a good way to go into counseling. Counselors can help, and counselors will help if you allow yourself to open up to them. But I went into it with there's nothing this lady can do to change what's happened in my past. There's nothing that she can do that's going to change my future. And just never really opened myself up to counseling, which
Yeah, that
kind
was a
of looking
lot.
back on that, I kick myself for it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it's like anything else in life. You get out of it what you put into it,
Absolutely.
and so it's if you don't think it's going to work, it's not going to.
Yeah.
So we touched on this just very briefly, but you lost someone who was like a brother to you to suicide. How did that loss shape your mental health journey afterward?
Oh man. To get into this, it was really really a struggle. I dealt with it and still deal with it at times. Just the grief over it. And a guy that he was a little bit older to me, but I looked up to him as an older brother. Somebody just you care so much about, and so many people you love care about him. Just, looking back and knowing that he felt like he was not enough for the people around him, that there was really no other option or no way out for him. It's still something that weighs heavy, very heavy on me day to day.
Mhm.
But one of the blessings of it was through losing him, we did become a lot closer as a friend group. And I became a lot closer to some of my friends' families that kind of, adopted us, quote unquote, as we were high schoolers, young and dumb. There were people that gave us safe places. And it really kind of was the beginning of me learning that I'm never alone, that no matter what I'm going through, that there are people that care about you, people that love you, and that people are willing to help if you allow them to help.
So that happened in high school, and then you still went into college feeling that you weren't enough and you were alone.
Yes. It was it was hard because the way that I coped with things was through addictive habits. Whenever I would get in my own head, I would turn to not healthy habits in order to cope with what was going on inside of me. Drinking, smoking, you name
Mhm.
it. It's probably something I've tried that to get myself out of my own head, and substances and things like that, alcohol, they're not the answer to getting out of your head. They just numb the pain. They don't take it away. It's just a temporary fix. And typically when you sober up, it comes back 10 times stronger,
Yeah.
because now you're dealing with the grief of what did I do last night when I was drunk? And the other grief is still there. The other depression is still there. It doesn't take it away. It just numbs it.
Hmm. So did you have guilt around your friend that passed?
Absolutely. It was, in 2013, Twitter was a very popular thing. And still to this day, I can tell you his very last tweet. He tweeted, roughly an hour before he killed himself, I wonder who would miss me if I was gone. And, to in the days and age of Twitter, that was his final words.
And and did anybody reach out to him that you know of, like when he posted
I
that?
I don't know. I nobody was quick enough. I know that for sure. And he was very active on Twitter, and it was the day and age where everybody tweeted everything they thought of. So it was kind of like nobody probably really thought, the actions that he was going to take within that next hour. And it's just kind of a very gentle reminder that anytime you see somebody that is seems a little off, whether it's through a text, whether it's through a tweet, whether it's just somebody pops up on your mind, to reach out to them, because you never know what they could be going through. And
And
you
they
see,
just need to have something
yeah,
pop up in their world
yes,
to get them to stop.
absolutely,
Very, very important. I think I'm pretty good about doing that. And somebody comes to mind within 24 hours, I'm paying them for something. I don't care if I'm bugging the hell out of them or not.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I try to be good at it, but I can't always say I'm the best at it, because sometimes it's somebody may pop up in your mind that it's been a broken relationship and you haven't talked to that person in years, or the last interaction you had with them wasn't a good one, but you never know um, why that person's popping up in your head. It is probably for a reason. Reach out to them.
When it comes to the athletes and stuff, we kind of I think I mentioned this to you offline. Like my cousin's son, he was a big athlete in school and then went to college and all of a sudden he was the big man on campus, and then he went to the little fish in the big pond.
Oh yeah.
And that's, I mean, that happens too. And I mean, he ended up taking his life. I've heard for what reasons we'll ultimately never know, but I can't imagine that that didn't factor into it in some way. That's like, where do I belong? And now you carry with again those pressures with you from being such a great athlete to, okay, this is, I have to bring my athleticism up a level because now I'm in college and there's bigger expectations, and I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know anybody here.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Um, exact same thing happened to me. It's like, in high school, my senior year, I was all Metro team. I had a lot of good things going for me in high school, and then you get to college, and it's like you don't even have a jersey yet, buddy. Like you haven't even made the roster yet. Like you might be a practice guy your freshman year. And that weighs heavy on you as well because you just go from this big life-size ego about yourself to now you're nothing. You're holding tackling dummies at practice. You're the guy that you're the guy they send out there to play against the starters, and you're not even learning your team's offense. You're learning the team you're playing that week's offense. Um, it's like I didn't even know the type of offense we ran until my sophomore year of college because every week I was learning the other team's offense. Um, it was, you're like you said, you're the bottom of the barrel. A lot of times that freshman year, unless you walk in and you're just a freak athlete and there's an opening and a need for you, there's a lot more times you're going to end up at the bottom of the totem pole than you are even the middle of it when you get to
Mhm.
college.
Yeah. So, what would you want young athletes to understand about coping strategies that feel helpful in the moment, but can become harmful over time?
I think, the biggest thing is that, temporarily numbing things does not solve the problem. To truly understand and love yourself, you have to put the temporary pride and the temporary joy aside and focus on, healing yourself long term, and doing things like prayer, meditation, whatever you find that truly connects you to who you want to be. Follow that. And I'm not here to say meditation's better than prayer or prayer is better than meditation. I'm a firm believer in God and I choose prayer. But to know that there's something outside that can help you heal from within is a powerful thing. That from within and staying within is only going to lead to a dark place. That there are people that want to help, there are activities that will help, and finding those things and feeding those things instead of feeding your negative thoughts is what is going to heal you.
Excellent advice. I love that. So, you later moved into coaching high school football. How did your own experiences influence the kind of coach that you wanted to be?
So yeah, once I graduated college, I spent 2 years at home before I got into coaching high school football, and got into coaching. And really, when I got into coaching, I always just tried to be the coach that built an individual connection with each and every player. Because when I played, I felt like not enough coaches tried to build that one-on-one connection. I never tried to group guys or put them in certain classifications of, oh, he runs with this guy, he runs with that guy. He runs with the bad kids, that kid runs with the book nerds. I really put an emphasis on trying to focus on each individual player and learning their story instead of, um, what they were surrounded by. I really focused and emphasized myself on just trying to build a one-on-one connection with all of those guys.
That makes such a huge difference. And not, I mean, we're talking high school and college here, but these like my son started when he was 5
Hmm.
in Pee Wee football, or well, he was in the lowest of the very first, when he first, I don't know what. I think a lot of places call it Pop Warner, but
Hmm.
it was our junior football club, and starting at 5 years old. And there's coaches that I know that he had that stood out to us, and even still stand out to us today. And there's a couple of them that, I mean, once he started his season, we would never let him quit, except one year. And that was a coach that put his hands on him and would just did nothing at all for his men, mental game at all. I mean, my Corey always played with heart and knew the game inside and out, played both sides, wasn't cocky about it, and just there was just this coach that wouldn't they just didn't gel, I guess.
Yeah, I think
But
a
they
lot
don't
of
realize how much influence they have going forward.
Yeah, the biggest issue I really feel like with a lot of coaches at any age level is they want to win, and they get so much more caught up in the moment about winning and losing football games than they do, especially at these young levels that we're talking about, Pop Warner into middle school, into high school, and even in college. Even in college, at 18 to 21 years old, you're still figuring life out.
Mm-hmm.
And coaches get so over focused on their job of winning and losing a football game and not their job of building young men that love themselves, that love others, that respect their parents, that are going to be beneficial members of society one day. They just want them to be good football players. And I
That
think
you
a
hit the
lot of
nail on the
coaches
head.
get a lot of coaches get caught up in that from time to time. Which is to say, as I was a coach on Friday nights, yeah, I cared about winning the football game, and I was going to try to put guys in position to make plays to win a football game. But at the end of the day, that meant nothing to me. I would rather see a guy graduate high school that, nobody in his family's ever graduated high school. Those things meant more to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they don't to every coach, and I think that's kind of where, some of the coaching issue stems from today. Is no coach is going to admit it, but a lot of coaches get too caught up in the win and loss totals, and not, you know, a lot more coaches can tell you their win and loss record than how many guys they helped graduate high school or college.
Wow. Sadly, yeah. I just the other night I was just watching when the game stands tall movie. Did you see that?
Hmm.
Excellent movie, and it's totally just wraps up what we just spoke about,
Yeah.
and I highly recommend that one. What are some signs you think coaches should pay attention to that go beyond performance and discipline to be able to recognize those different things?
That's one of the most difficult things about mental health is it's very hard to identify at times. That, even speaking of myself, like high school, college, nobody really knew how much that I struggled, but man, I really struggled from time to time, and there were, attempts that I took at my own life that I failed. And I thank God for that. I thank God that I failed.
Me
Um,
too.
but you got to read the room with guys. It's more like I said, once you can build those one-on-one relationships with guys, you get the sixth sense when they're off. You can look at their demeanor. A guy who typically carries himself very well is starting to let the little things go. Um, it always starts with little things that, you may not pick up on, but eventually they lead into bigger things that are much more noticeable. And then ultimately, sometimes unfortunately it gets to that big thing where that player's no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I feel like a lot of people feel a lot of guilt is, you look back on it and you're like, well, there was this sign, there was that sign, there was that week that he missed 2 practices in a week and I punished him for it. I didn't ask him if he was okay. Because that's another thing with a lot of times in football, especially. It's like if you miss something, you get punished for it. And it's like a coach doesn't ask you. It's like, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
It's
Why were you late?
yeah.
Why did you miss
You're
practice?
gonna run after practice, not did you miss, are you okay? Is everything okay with your family? Is everything okay with you? It's you weren't here, you're punished. And that was, I got in a lot of trouble when I was a high school coach because guys that would miss practice and they'd be open and honest with me, I wouldn't punish them. Because I wanted, I wanted guys to know it was okay to help take care of their families. And if a guy was feeling off, that it was okay to take a day off. Um,
Did you feel that anyone took advantage of that though, or do they just kind of respect the fact that you did
I
that?
I personally never felt like anybody took advantage of it. Because if somebody tells me they're not okay, I'm 100% going to believe that they're not okay. Whether they're telling the truth or whether they're lying, I'm going to care for them like they're not okay if they tell me they're not okay.
Mhm.
Um, and I do believe that, a lot of the young athletes that were under my guidance, I was the offensive line coach, so a lot of the offensive line men, I feel like they respected that. And a lot of times they would show up and they would tell me, I'm not okay, coach. Like, I'm struggling today. I had players whose parents didn't always necessarily look out for them. Guys asking me, we ran practice from 6 to 8 o'clock during the summer, and then I was filling my car up and taking guys home whose parents wouldn't come pick them up from practice. And a guy asking you, "Hey, coach, do you think we can stop at McDonald's? Because if I get home and they've already ate dinner and there's no leftovers, I'm not going to eat." And a lot of the things that happen at home too affect these kids' lives.
Absolutely.
You never know what's going on in somebody's life unless you ask. And sometimes it may feel awkward or out of place to ask. And sometimes you may ask and they may tell you to kick rocks, but you don't know
Mhm.
if you don't ask. And if you ask and somebody's willing to talk to you, that's where change can really happen.
And what do you when well, first off, there's I think maybe if more coaches even just took the time, whether they know the kids very well or not, to just ask them if they're okay.
Yes. It's a simple, I mean,
Just
it's,
as a standard.
yeah,
I mean, I shouldn't say it that way because they should know how to respond to it as well
yeah.
and be
And I think,
if they are going to ask.
yeah, and I think the hardest thing about that is that so many coaches try to put on this macho man attitude that they're big tough guys, and that you don't show a player an empathetic side of yourself, so they don't feel like they can come to you.
Mhm.
You've got to, that was one of the big things for me as a coach is I saw a lot of myself in these young athletes. And I was able to look at some of their actions and their demeanors, and I could tell they were off because, 8 years ago, that was me. And I think that a lot of young athletes think that coaches are older and that they've lived typically different, like lived completely different lifestyles than they have. And a lot of my guys didn't realize that I struggled with a lot of the things they struggled with until I sat down and talked to them, until I was open with them, until I was honest with them. And I think that's something as a coach that more coaches can be better about, is not always talking about the X's and O's, but sitting guys down and just talking about life with them,
Mhm.
sharing their stories, their testimonies, how they've gotten out of things. I think more coaches need to do that. That it's not always about the game. That at the end of the day, any sport is just a game. But
Yeah, and
life,
if you think about it and all that, I've referenced the football movies, but if you think about all the stories around these great football movies and the great coaches that are the center of those,
yeah,
they're the ones that had teams like that, and they
yes,
had those relationships, and the kids still succeeded, the team
hmm,
still succeeded.
yeah.
So it's not, I mean, how did that impact the success of your team, one way or the other, in you taking the time to have an interest in them?
And it's like that was the one thing. Like when I coached, I didn't care about the game. We could have not won a game all season, And as long as my guys felt like they were loved, I was the best coach they've ever had.
Yeah.
And that was the mindset I had, but not a lot of coaches have that mindset.
Right. And plus when it comes to football and it's guys
Yeah.
and guys are supposed to be tough
Yeah.
and it's unheard of to show any kind of weakness in that way.
Absolutely.
So that just kind of adds to it as well. What do you think high schools and colleges get wrong when it comes to supporting athletes' mental health?
Um, it's, I really feel as if like, in the last probably 10 years that this has really come a long way and there is a lot of positive things going on in the mental health realms. You hear, more things available to guys than there's ever been, but there's still not enough. And I think, as a football player, I think, coaches showing athletes that it's okay to not be okay, allowing guys those mental health breaks and focusing just more on individual instead of sport, could be just even more of a game changer. And I know it's happening more and more, but it's still not enough because you still hear about it. You still hear about guys that are part of teams that have committed suicide. You still hear about, guys struggling with mental health. And mental health struggles are something that'll never go away. So it's an ongoing thing. And it's ever changing. What works for one person may not work for the next person, which is very hard for probably people like yourself that try to provide resources. Is sometimes you provide a resource and it works great for somebody and you get a testimonial about how you changed somebody else's life. And then, you know, a week or two later, you try to help somebody and you heard that they've committed suicide. Um, and it's like there's got to be more resources and there's got to be, just allowing guys to feel their feelings and allowing even young athletes that are females to feel their feelings.
And coaches,
And coaches, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's just
it's tough to be a coach too.
it's, I don't struggle with it because I'm a very sensitive individual, but I think everybody can use being a little bit more sensitive in their life, to themselves and to others.
Mm-hmm. And that's something also that it's like if you're not, I mean, there's a way to teach mental toughness and resilience without being a jerk coach
Absolutely.
and not making soft
Yeah.
athletes, which I think
Yes.
is a big concern for so many. That
Hmm.
we talk about the participation trophies and things like that. You can have competitive sports and and want to win or whatever, but you can still do it in a way that you're showing compassion and that empathy, like you said, and raising young men, young women in a way that they can maneuver through society that doesn't make them soft.
Absolutely.
What that answer is completely, I
We'll
don't think
never know.
anybody has it yet,
We'll
but I
know. Yeah.
think we should keep trying
Yeah.
and the resources that just I don't know, more conversations like this
Yeah.
and
I think, as a coach, I think one thing that like, coaches do it and you see it, but really you should bring somebody in to talk about mental health minimum once a month. Minimum of once a month. You should have a guest speaker on mental health. And there are plenty of people, and I would always be welcome. If any coach is listening to this and they want somebody to speak to their team about mental health, I don't care if it's a women's soccer team, I don't care if it's a collegiate football team, I don't care if it's a swimming team. If you want somebody to talk to your players about mental health, I will gladly do that, because you never know what your story may how it may impact somebody else. And somebody else may hear it and say, "Hey, I'm a lot like that guy." and you build a friendship, you build a connection, and that's how mental health is. That's how mental struggles are overcame when you build connections with people that have been in the same shoes as you, and then you have people in your life that you don't feel like you have to walk through life alone anymore.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what teammates can be good for. And that's a challenge to young athletes is if one of your buddies are off, don't sit there and think it's okay and that they'll get over it. Confront it, walk with them. You don't have to walk in front of them. You don't have to walk behind them and push them, but grab their hand and walk with them. There's nothing more powerful than walking hand in hand with somebody. And that truly is how you can help people that struggle with mental health is to not let them know that you're going to walk in front of them and help them get somewhere or not to be behind them pushing them to get over what they're going through, but to grab their hand and walk alongside of them. And I think more coaches, more athletes, I think everybody could do more of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've talked about the athletes and the coaches and what role do parents play, especially when their child's identity is deeply tied to their sport?
I think, as I'm not a parent myself, but just parents play the most crucial role in especially a young athlete's life. Because at the end of the day, they wake up every morning with you, and they're going to bed with you. Hopefully, and that's the crazy thing about some young athletes is they don't have parents like that. They're living at a buddy's house on the couch. They're living somewhere else, but not necessarily, just parents, but any older person that they look up to plays such a crucial role, whether it affects them negatively or positively. It's like your parents have known you your whole life, outside of what you do in sports. They know all the ins and outs of you, and parents really have to be the first ones to identify when something's wrong because they've known you from the time you were born until
Mhm.
to today. Your parents have known you. And I think one of the biggest things is parents have to know and have to see those changes in attitude, and just not ignore them and not shake them off as, oh, he's a high school boy. I bet some girl broke his heart, or he's just upset because he lost his starting job on the football team, or he didn't make the varsity roster this year. That, sometimes there's bigger, deeper things that I wish my parents would have asked about. My parents just kind of, always thought I was okay. And just parents, like coaches, like teammates, like everybody, you just have to be okay with asking the hard questions. And sometimes your kids may blow you off, but they may have that moment where you ask the hard question and they break down to you, and that's where you get the opportunity to walk alongside them. Not a parent that has always guided them, not a parent that has always disciplined them, but a parent that can grab their hand and walk alongside of them and help them through what they're going through.
I think that's a very important distinction to make too, and that um, you don't have to have the answers.
Absolutely
You
not.
just have to be there with them, sit
Yeah.
beside them. You don't have to say, and that I am a huge, I'm very much guilty of doing this because I am a fixer. I'm a problem solver. It's just my nature. And, no parent wants to see their kid hurting or struggling. And so we want to make them feel better. And sometimes just saying, hey, I'm here. I can talk with you. I can sit with you. You don't have to have the answers.
Yes, absolutely. And that's kind of, one thing that I wish I would have had more of in life is, not the friends that influence you to go out and get drunk with them, not the guys that, but a guy that would just, sit there with you in silence as you're struggling, or, a coach that would just sit there and not try to give you all the answers or not try to tell you this or that, but just sit with you. Just being in the presence of someone that you feel truly cares is very, very powerful.
Mhm. But you have to recognize that that person does care
Yes.
and be willing to be vulnerable in even the slightest bit vulnerable, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So for the athletes who are currently struggling but don't know how to speak up, what would you want them to hear right now?
I think, the biggest thing is that you are never alone. There was always somebody did this to me one day when I was struggling. They told me to take my hand and place it over my heart. And as you sit there and you get real quiet, you feel your heart starting to beat, and they look at you and they just say, "Now that's purpose." That we're all put on earth for a reason. I am a Christian, and I firmly believe that God has put every single one of us on earth to fulfill something for Him. And whether you feel that or not, there is more to life worth living than you could ever truly imagine. And that if you don't live for tomorrow and you get so caught up in the yesterday or today, that you're not truly living life. There's a reason that in a car that the windshield is, much, much larger than your rear view mirror because your life is not made to be looking behind you. I don't know if you've ever tried to drive looking through your rear view mirror, but you're not going to be very successful. You've got to look through the windshield and you've got to look forward to what's ahead in life and not what's behind you.
Can't
And
change
then
what's already happened.
yeah, and then just through every dark night, there is a brighter day. That no matter how bad life seems, that if you wake up the next morning, you're doing a lot better than some people. And that morning you wake up, you have woke up with a purpose. Whether you feel that purpose or not, that's up for you to decide. But there is a purpose there. And to just keep fighting, keep going through what you're going through, and reach out and find people because you are not alone. Never, ever alone. And if you ever feel like you're alone, like I said earlier, I'm happy to give my contact information to whoever. And my phone stays on 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I promise you, my cell phone never dies. And I may not answer right away, but I will always get back to you.
Right. So what does strength mean to you today compared to when you were playing?
I think strength. I find my true strength in just staying true to who I am as a person. To not allow others to dictate how I feel, to not let outside emotions dictate how I feel, but just to live every day in the moment and in knowing that every day may not be a good day, but there is a lot of good in every single day if you open your eyes to it. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me is that I've realized that there's going to be ups and downs through every day. But when you can look back on it, it's like, man, was it really that bad? Not really, because look at all the good that happened. And finding just your strength. And like I said, I'm a devout Christian, and I'm not a devout Christian, but I'm actually a very new Christian and have just, welcomed God back into my life. But putting God first and helping others and being the leader that I know God has chosen me to be. And for everybody, it doesn't have to be God. I personally recommend God because God has changed my life unbelievable ways over the last 4 months. But find something, just find anything that you truly feel like helps you, and just lean on that. Lean not on your own understanding, but lean on others, lean on, doing service work, doing other things that just help fill yourself.
Mhm. Very good. If this conversation opens the door for just one coach, parent, or athlete to start a real conversation, what would you hope that conversation sounds like?
I really just hope it's a constant reminder, to let everybody around you, just to let them know that you love them. That there's never at any point in time where you're truly alone, that there is somebody out there that loves you, somebody out there that wants to help you. There is so much joy that can just be found in truly feeling that at least one person genuinely loves and cares about you. And that's what can bring you out of those dark places, is knowing that one person genuinely cares and loves you. And you lean on that one person, and then you discover that there's two people, and then you discover that there's three people. And then you look at it and you're like, wow, there's so many people that love me and care about me. And you start to feel better. But if you never
And
tell that,
hopefully that first person is yourself.
yes, absolutely. And just, a constant reminder, just let the people around let the people around you know that you love them, but also remind yourself that you love yourself. Like you just said, like wake up in the morning and just tell yourself that you love yourself and speak it into existence. You may not feel it it may take 2 months of you telling yourself that you love yourself before it finally hits you. But if you keep telling yourself that you love yourself, one day you're going to truly come to terms with the fact that you do love yourself. And that's a very powerful thing.
Yep. Your brain hears your thoughts.
Yes.
So is there anything else that you want to make sure that you tell our listeners today? Is there one more message or something you feel that we touched on that was important to you to bring out?
Not that I can think of, other than just, just be who you are, that it's okay to not be okay, that not being okay doesn't make you any less of a person, because you're human. And we're all built in God's image, or we're all built in Buddha's image, or we're all built in whoever you want to believe built you. You're built in that image. And that your weakness does not make you weak. Um, it does not define who you are. It does not do anything to yourself that you can't change. And that, mental health, as hard as it is, you can get better. That there are people that want to help you, that there are people that care about you, and there's people that want to see you in tomorrow. There's, that's one thing that, if you ever feel like you don't have people that love you, just write it down in a list. And that list may start with one person. It might be your dog, it might be your cat, but just write things down that you feel like love you. And that list will grow, and you'll find strength in that. And that list will become something powerful. And just to truly feel like you're never alone. Like we said, you first got to love yourself, but just stay true to who you are and allow yourself to not be okay, but don't tell yourself that you're not going to be okay forever. That there is, through every dark night, there is a brighter day. Tupac Shakur said that.
Good old Tupac.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story and for helping shine a light on a topic that so many athletes silently struggle with.
I appreciate being on.
I, for one, am glad that your attempts failed and that you are still here with us. And to our listeners, especially our athletes and parents, if something in this episode resonated with you, know that you're not alone. Support exists beyond the scoreboard. If you or someone you love is struggling, please reach out to someone you trust. Visit glowforhopenfp.org for resources and support. And I think that'll wrap it up here for today. Thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah,
see you
thank
on the
you.
next episode. Until then, keep shining. Thank you for joining us on Glow for Hope. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, your mental wellness matters, and you are never alone. For more resources and support, visit glowforhopenfp.org. That's glowforhopenfp.org. Stay connected, stay hopeful, and keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep shining.
This podcast does not and is not intended to provide medical advice. The information presented on this podcast should not be interpreted or construed in any way as a replacement or substitution for medical advice. It is important that you discuss your condition, treatment options, or any questions that you may have with your doctor or healthcare provider.